So today is going to be Art Talk number 36, Robert Rauschenberg and the Art of Collage. Collage is kind of an unusual artistic medium. It's kind of something that's continually evolving and includes new materials. The art is typically abstract, though it's also called kind of abstract expressionism, modern art, and pop art. We kind of covered those periods in last year's Art Talks. It's oftentimes about collecting odd materials, which become a part of the story and representation of the idea that the artist is trying to convey. Our feature artist today, Robert Rauschenberg, actually referred to these things as found objects. And it's actually interesting, collage is French for pasted paper. It was actually first formalized as an art medium by in 1921 during the Cubist period that Picasso started. He just started pasting paper to form pictures. So we also know from earlier talks by Sarah that many artists collaged, I think very famously Matisse, and also more recently Hockney and David Hockney and Aaron Carl. I actually learned about Robert Rauschenberg from an Amazon Prime video. It's called Robert Rauschenberg Retrospective. It was actually about a show that was done at the New York Museum of Modern Art. It's actually quite a fascinating, video if you get a chance to watch it. And it also talked about his friendship with John Cage and also the dancer Mears Cunningham. So, and there's also a lot of YouTubes on this artist. So let's go on now to Sarah for our 36th Art Talk.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, AJ. Happy Thursday. I just wanted to start this week actually with something a little bit different. I'm going to close my camera. So before we begin on Rauschenberg, I just wanted to take a quick moment to talk about the piece of art that was presented in the Capitol yesterday to the new president and first lady. So this painting behind me is called Landscape with Rainbow, done in 1859 by Robert Duncanson, who was a famous African-American painter at the time. And Dr. Jill Biden actually helped pick this painting out as the one to showcase post-inauguration. And going back to our Art in the White House talk last week, I mentioned the rainbow in the background of George Washington's presidential portrait and how it represented the rainbow from Genesis and the end of destruction. And we can see it here again as a symbol from this Civil War era painting. And I think the rainbow in general holds great meaning to our country right now, kind of the end of destruction. Hopefully with this pandemic, we're turning over a new leaf. Yes, so I just thought that was an interesting little piece of information as I was watching the inauguration yesterday. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah. So on to Rauschenberg. So Milton Ernest Robert Rauschenberg, known by Robert or even sometimes as Bob, was an American painter, sculptor, collage artist, graphic artist. His art really transcends labels. He was born in Port Arthur, Texas, and went on to attend the University of Texas in Austin, studying pharmacology, not realizing yet that he was dyslexic. He later dropped out and was drafted into the Navy. After the Navy, he went on to study art at the Kansas City Art Institute, Académie Julian in Paris, and Black Mountain College in North Carolina. He subsequently moved to New York and was part of the Art Students League starting in 1949. And Rauschenberg is loosely known as a neo-Dadaist, which kind of explores the interaction between art objects and real-life objects. But really, Rauschenberg was a part of every post-war art movement since abstract expressionism. And he famously stated that, quote, painting relates to both art and life. And he wanted to work and explore that gap between the two. So let's take a look at how he takes real-life objects and turns them into art. So this is called Bed, and I wanted to show this and tie it back to my presentation about quilting a couple weeks ago. This is one of Rauschenberg's first combines, which was a term he created to signify the marriage of painting and sculpture. And he wanted to challenge our preconceived notions of what those things meant. So was a painting meant to be done with paint? Was a sculpture supposed to be seen in the round? All of these things he sought to dismantle or disregard and create something new and different. So with this piece, it's said that he ran out of canvases, so he turned to his bedding, first scribbling on it with pencil, and then stretching the quilt out on wooden supports and kind of spilling or dribbling paint over it.
Fantastic.
And with this piece and with a lot of his combines, I think it's less about what the paint means or what the colors he uses means, and rather just about these kind of found objects that AJ mentioned and what those say about him. So here's another one of Rauschenberg's combines. This is called Canyon and was done in 1959. This piece is done in mixed media, obviously, with wood, fabric, pencil, oils, photos, to name a few. Again, this work calls into question the medium. Is it collage? Is it a sculpture, a painting? And the most iconic element of this piece is that it's made with a stuffed bald eagle. Yes, a real bald eagle. And this has caused much controversy of the piece throughout its existence. He actually acquired the bird from another artist, Sari Dienes, who got it from a recently deceased neighbor that had shot the bird himself and was one of Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders. And so Rauschenberg submitted a notarized letter to prove that the bird was killed before the 1940 Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act. But it's still given this painting much infamy. Someone said that Canyon, this piece, was of zero value because he wouldn't be able to sell it without violating the 1940 Act. And a $40 million lawsuit was actually filed against him. However, the US government has valued the work at $15 million. So clearly the other side lost that lawsuit. So Rauschenberg created this collage in 1970. This is called Signs, and it represents the upheaval and the turmoil of the 1960s. In the lower left corner, there's a big image of Buzz Aldrin in space, which represents progress and optimism. But then he's surrounded by these figures that were integral to the 60s, like Martin Luther King Jr., John F. Kennedy, and his brother Robert, all of which, though, whom were assassinated. And then you can see there's Janis Joplin, who actually overdosed right before Rauschenberg created this piece. There's an image signifying the Vietnam War. So while Rauschenberg's artworks didn't always portray a specific message, this one definitely speaks loud and clear to the statement he's trying to make and the lens in which he's looking at the 60s through. So Rauschenberg did a lot more than just create art. A fun fact is that he won a Grammy in 1983 for designing the album cover to the Talking Heads album, Speaking in Tongues, which you can see right now. He also created the Rauschenberg Overseas Culture Interchange, that's a mouthful, in 1984. And it was a way to spark international dialogue through art. And so with the National Gallery in DC, he went on a 10-country exhibition. So he went to China, Tibet, Venezuela, Cuba, and the USSR, just to name a few. In 1993, he was awarded the National Medal of Arts by President Clinton. And in 2000, he was honored with AmFAR's Award of Excellence for artistic contributions to the fight against AIDS. So these were just a few of his accomplishments, but as you can see, he was a very multidimensional artist that used art to fight for causes important to him. Thank you.
Cool.
That's very cool.
Cool. Particularly that album cover. For the Talking Heads.
Yeah.
I actually have that album.
Oh, thank you so much. Do we have any questions for Sarah? You can just unmute yourself and shout it out or put it in the chat window. It's okay if you don't. You can always ask them during the rest of the town hall as well. Thank you so much, Sarah. So,
everyone.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So for next week, we're going to be covering the Torlonia marbles in Italy. It'll actually be quite an interesting show.